All right, so welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're diving into the future of education.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, you know those school buildings we all know and maybe even love. Are they on their way out?
Oh, wow. Big question.
Big question. And we've got some really thought-provoking excerpts from this academic paper. It's called The Future of Education. Will Traditional Schools Disappear?
Catchy title.
It is, right. And it makes you think. I mean, think about how different school is now from when we were kids.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
This paper basically takes those changes and just fast forwards, like way into the future. Makes you wonder if those traditional schools can even keep up.
Yeah, I mean, it really makes you question those basic assumptions we have about what school is.
Right.
Like, for centuries, it's been all about discipline, right? Standardized instruction. Everyone learns the same thing at the same
The
time.
factory model of education.
Exactly. But this paper argues that in today's world, things are changing so fast, we need something more.
We need adaptability.
Yes. Critical thinking, constant learning.
Lifelong learning.
Yes. And are traditional schools really equipped to teach those things?
Good point. And the paper actually highlights a study where students themselves are calling for big changes.
Oh, interesting.
They're saying, we want education that's more relevant, more connected to what's actually happening in the world. I mean, the world's changing at warp speed.
It is, yeah.
They want education to catch up.
And you know what's interesting? The paper links this desire for change directly to technology.
Oh, of course, yeah.
We're seeing online learning platforms, things like MOOCs, just explode in popularity.
OOCs.
You can take courses from the world's leading experts on any subject you can imagine, all at your own pace.
From anywhere.
From anywhere. I mean, for someone like me who maybe struggled with a rigid class schedule or even just finding a good class on a niche topic, it's amazing. It's revolutionary.
I have to admit, even I'm tempted to sign up for a few MOOCs, and I'm supposed to be the expert on everything. But seriously, can traditional schools really compete with that kind of flexibility?
It's a valid question.
It's like offering a horse and buggy when everyone else has a Tesla.
Right. And these platforms, they cater to different learning styles in ways that traditional classrooms just can't.
Yeah.
They offer so much customization and access to knowledge.
It's mind-blowing.
It is. But there are some serious challenges we need to think about.
Okay, like what?
Well, the paper brings up this thing called the digital divide.
Right. Not everyone has access to technology or the internet.
Exactly. And it's not just about giving everyone a laptop.
Right. It's about digital literacy skills.
Yes. People need to know how to use these tools effectively for learning.
How do we address that?
Right. And what about the social aspects of learning? I mean, I learned so much from my classmates, just as much as from my teachers.
Me too.
How do these online platforms replicate that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it sounds like this isn't just a technology is good, schools are bad kind of situation.
No, definitely not. It's more nuanced than that.
We've got these incredible opportunities with technology, but
Yeah,
we need to be aware of the potential downsides.
Absolutely. And we have to figure out how to address them, right?
We do.
But the paper also argues that even with these challenges, the shift towards technology offers amazing possibilities.
Like what? Give me an example.
Well, think about entirely new learning materials.
Okay.
New methods of teaching, maybe a way to finally tackle issues like, procrastination.
That's the P word.
Or truancy. And maybe most importantly, preparing students for a workforce that's being transformed by this thing called the Fourth Industrial Revolution.
The Fourth Industrial Revolution. So we're talking automation, AI, all that.
All of it. It's
Okay.
changing the very nature of work.
Wow. Okay, now I'm picturing kids learning about robotics by building their own robots.
Right.
Or designing virtual worlds to understand complex scientific concepts.
See? The possibilities are endless.
It's both exciting and a little bit intimidating, to be honest.
Yeah.
But what does all this mean for those brick-and-mortar schools?
Right. The ones we all know.
Are they doomed?
Well, the paper says they're at a crossroads. They can either adapt to this new landscape or, they risk becoming irrelevant.
So the pressure is on.
Big time. They need to meet the evolving needs of students, which means less lecturing, more interaction with experts, and more flexible structures.
It's a tall order.
It is, but the paper does highlight schools that are already experimenting.
Oh, that's encouraging.
They're doing things like blended learning models, combining online and in-person elements, and they're using more technology in the classroom.
So maybe it's not a death knell for traditional schools.
Not necessarily.
But they definitely need to evolve.
Absolutely.
It's like they need to become the smartphone of education.
I like that.
Constantly adapting, adding new features,
To stay relevant.
Exactly. But who's going to lead this evolution?
Teachers.
Teachers, of course.
They're absolutely essential.
But wouldn't their role change dramatically in this new landscape?
Oh, without a doubt.
So we were talking about how teachers' roles would have to change. It's a lot to ask, right?
It is, but think about it. They'd need expertise in all those new online platforms.
Right, all the tech stuff.
Yeah. And they'd have to manage both online and in-person learning environments.
Oh, wow. So juggling both at the same time.
Exactly. And you know what I think is most important?
What's that?
Strong interpersonal skills. Like, really strong.
So not just being good at teaching the subject, but also connecting with students on a personal level.
Yes. Especially emotional intelligence. Being able to understand and respond to their needs, whether they're in the classroom or online.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Imagine teaching a room full of students while also managing an online forum and giving personalized feedback to kids who are all working at different paces.
Yeah.
It's like being a conductor, leading this orchestra of individual instruments.
I love that analogy.
They all have their own part, but they come together to create this amazing, harmonious whole.
Beautiful. And that emotional intelligence piece is so crucial. We're talking about kids facing a world that's, well, it's already pretty complex.
And it's only getting more so.
Right. And online learning, it can be isolating. So having a teacher who really gets them, who can support them emotionally, that's going to be so important.
Absolutely. So it's not just about teachers being dispensers of knowledge anymore.
Yep.
It's more about being mentors, guides, helping each student on their own learning journey.
Yes, exactly.
It's a huge shift. And speaking of shifts, with all these changes happening, what can we expect to see in the future of education overall? Any predictions?
Well, one trend that's really gaining momentum is personalized learning, tailoring education to each student's unique needs and preferences.
Personalized learning, okay.
It's like creating a custom learning path for every single student, helping them reach their full potential in a way that really resonates with them.
That's pretty amazing when you think about it.
It is. And you know what's driving this trend?
What?
Data.
Data.
Yeah. And research. We're using it to inform curriculum design and teaching strategies.
So we're moving away from that one-size-fits-all.
Exactly. Towards something much more nuanced and effective.
So hold on. We're talking about a future where education is more flexible, individualized, responsive to each student's unique learning style.
Yes.
It's like we're finally acknowledging that not everyone learns the same way.
Right.
Or at the same pace.
And they don't all have the same goals.
That is incredibly exciting. But does this mean the end of standardized education as we know it? I mean, if everyone's on their own path, how do we ensure everyone still has a shared foundation? The basics.
That's the million-dollar question. And it's something we're going to delve into as we continue.
Okay, so before we get to that, you mentioned this thing earlier, systems thinking. What exactly is that?
Oh, yeah. Systems thinking is all about seeing the bigger picture. Understanding how all the parts of the education system work together.
All the parts. Okay, so not just focusing on individual subjects.
Right. It's about connecting the dots between different fields of knowledge.
Okay, so instead of just learning history, math, and science separately, you might tackle a project that involves all three.
Exactly, like designing a sustainable city, something like that.
I like that.
And the paper argues that this kind of approach is crucial for developing problem-solving skills. The kind of skills kids will need in a world facing these really complex challenges.
Right. Climate change, inequality, all of that.
All of it. It's about giving them the tools to tackle those big systemic issues.
It's like that old saying, give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime.
Right.
But now it's more like, teach a person to design a sustainable aquaculture system, you feed a whole community for generations. Okay, maybe I'm getting carried away with the analogy, but you get the point.
I do. I like it.
It's about empowering them.
Exactly. And this goes beyond the classroom, too.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
How so?
The paper talks about collaborative learning environments that extend beyond school.
Learning that happens out in the real world.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in learning by doing.
Me too. Think about community involvement, working with businesses, even global collaborations online.
Wow. Yeah. So connecting learning to real-world experiences, that's powerful.
It is. And it makes you wonder about how we assess student progress in these more, fluid environments.
That's a good point. If we're moving away from traditional tests and grades, how do we measure whether students are actually learning?
Right. And are they developing the skills they need?
Exact.
The paper suggests moving towards a more holistic approach.
Holistic, okay.
Think portfolios of work, project-based evaluations, assessments that focus on critical thinking and problem solving.
So it's not just about what you know, but how you can use it.
Yes. And how you can adapt.
It's more about evaluating growth and progress, not just assigning a letter grade, which honestly is a much more accurate reflection of how we learn in real life, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. And it brings us back to that evolving definition of standards.
Right, because if everyone's on their own unique learning journey, it's hard to compare them using the same yardstick.
Exactly. So instead of focusing on these standardized benchmarks, there's this movement towards defining skills and competencies that students need to thrive.
So less about memorizing facts and dates,
Less about that.
and more about communication, collaboration, critical thinking, adaptability,
You got it.
skills that will help you no matter what you end up doing in life.
Exactly. It's about equipping them to be lifelong learners, ready for whatever comes their way.
Love it. And technology plays a huge role in this.
A massive role. We already talked about online learning platforms, but think about virtual reality, augmented reality.
Ooh, now you're speaking my language.
Yeah.
I'm a total tech geek. Imagine learning about history by virtually walking through ancient Rome
Right.
or exploring the human body from the inside out using augmented reality. That's amazing.
The possibilities are pretty mind-blowing.
They are. But like with anything powerful, there's a flip side.
There is. The paper talks about the potential for fragmentation.
Fragmentation.
Yeah, we move towards more personalized learning. There's a risk that some students might be learning one thing while others are learning something completely different.
Oh, I see. So it's a balancing act.
It is.
How do we embrace the power of technology and personalization while also making sure every student has a solid foundation?
That's the big question.
It is. And honestly, I don't think there's an easy answer.
Yeah.
But we need to be having this conversation.
Yeah, I do.
We're on the verge of a huge transformation in education,
We are.
and we need to make sure it works for everyone.
I completely agree.
So the future of education is going to look very different from what we're used to. That's for sure.
Very different.
Well said. We've covered a lot, from the rise of online learning to the changing role of teachers. But there's one more piece of this puzzle we need to explore: the human element. Stay tuned. And we're back for our final deep dive segment. We've talked about tech, teachers changing roles, personalized learning, all that. But it's easy to forget about the people at the center of all this,
Yeah.
the learners themselves.
Well, right. I mean, these are real kids we're talking about, real lives.
Exactly. And that's where this paper gets really interesting. It goes beyond just the trends and starts talking about, accessibility, equity, like the very purpose of education. It asks this question: why is the link between education, opportunity, and well-being so narrow? Like, what if we let students choose their own paths, really embrace their talents and interests?
Wow. Powerful question.
It is. Right. Imagine education wasn't just about getting a job.
Yeah.
What if it was about, discovering your passion, your potential, contributing to society in a way that feels, meaningful to you?
It almost sounds like a utopia or something.
Yeah, right. But the paper argues this kind of shift is possible, especially with personalized learning taking off. Like, if we ditch the one-size-fits-all, we can create a system that truly values individual differences.
I like that.
But, this brings us back to what we were saying before about the potential downsides of personalization.
Yeah.
If we're not careful, we could end up with a system that's fragmented. Like, kids are learning totally different things depending on their interests.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
So how do we balance, individualization with making sure everyone has that shared foundation? It's like we need to create an ecosystem,
Okay.
where every plant can thrive in its own way, but they're all still rooted in that same fertile ground. Maybe I'm mixing metaphors, but you get the idea.
I get it. I do. It's tricky. It is.
It's tough. And the paper says part of the solution might be changing how we think about success in education.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, if everyone's on their own path, there's less pressure to, conform to a single standard.
Ah, I see. Yeah. So instead of comparing yourself to others, it's more about celebrating your own growth, your own progress.
Exactly. It's about fostering a love of learning for its own sake, not just for the grades or getting into college.
It's about being intrinsically motivated.
Yes. And I think that's huge. If students are excited about what they're learning, they're more likely to, Stick with it when things get tough. Think creatively. Develop those skills we were talking about.
Absolutely. It all comes down to that.
And maybe this shift in mindset could help break down some of those social and economic barriers the paper talks about.
You think so?
Well, if education isn't just this narrow path, it opens up so many more possibilities for everyone, right? No matter their background.
That's a really good point, yeah. It's about opportunity and not just information.
Right. It's about giving people the power to create their own futures.
Yeah.
Not just fitting them into a mold. It's a powerful idea.
It is.
And, even though this paper doesn't give us all the answers, it makes us think.
It definitely does. Makes you think. It does.
The authors even admit they're not, writing a blueprint for the future of education.
More like starting a conversation.
Exactly. They're raising these important questions we all need to grapple with.
Yeah. And we've covered so much in this deep dive. So much. We've talked about how tech is changing everything, the challenges and the opportunities.
Traditional schools being at a crossroads.
Teachers needing to adapt.
Personalized learning.
The digital divide.
Rethinking our assumptions about, what education even is.
Right. What it even is. Yeah.
And so, as we wrap up, the question we're left with is, what kind of education system do you think will best prepare future generations for a world that's, let's face it, more complex and more connected than ever before?
That's the question, isn't it?
It is. It's a good one.
It's a big one. And honestly, there's no easy answer.
No, there isn't.
But it's a conversation we need to have, all of us. So thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, everyone. Keep asking those tough questions. Keep exploring. And most importantly, keep learning.